I'm happy you are upcoming lawyers, and this is something that I'd want you to drum on a lot. I'd want to appeal to you to volunteer free legal services to our brothers and sisters who are hurriedly thrown into prison because they did not get your assistance. You could be there. I'm surprised that anytime the politicians go in and then come back, they try to do a donation. What do they need a donation for? We are talking about proper reformation, rehabilitation, so that our prisons become purely correctional institutions.
With a round of applause, let's invite Mr. Ibrahim Oponkwati. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. The Noble Law Group, members of the 2022 Public Interest and Advocacy Fellowship Program, invited guests. I really feel honored to have been invited as one of the speakers for this occasion to speak on the subject law and development, advocacy as a catalyst for development, country-specific contexts. I therefore decided to avoid all these frameworks that may not suit our country-specific situation and rather narrow in on what I do as a prisons journalist and a human rights advocate who is aware of the huge contribution of law advocacy to the development of the country. My belief emanates from the gaping loopholes in our country's criminal justice system that have contributed to massive abuses of the rights of poor, voiceless, and unlettered citizens, and other injustices usually perpetrated by some agents in the criminal justice chain. My worry, hence my reference to poor citizens, is because those who have the means are at times able to use technicalities in court to either have their way or delay their trial. I'm happy you are upcoming lawyers, and this is something that I'd want you to drum on a lot. A non-custodial law that would put petty offenders to work, but rather we prefer to warehouse these petty offenders in prison, mixed with hardened criminals, and use the taxpayers' money to feed them and eventually become more hardened after their release. So what can we do? What can you also do in the form of persistent advocacy within the law for Parliament to pass the non-custodial sentencing bill into law? So I was outside, I was speaking to Joint Youth, and this is something that I spoke passionately about, and this is something that I've been talking about over the years. I pray that you regularly visit the prisons to see the conditions there for yourself. Try as much as possible to put yourself in their shoes. We are too rigid and strict at times in the interpretation of the law without a recourse to certain contextual situations. The passage, for instance, of the Narcotics Control Commission Bill into law, I'm sure you may be conversant with the Narcotics Control Commission Bill into law, after years of the bill lying dormant in Parliament, was through the instrumentality of persistent advocacy championed by civil society and some lawyers. These are lawyers who wanted the best for the country. Of course, every lawyer wants money. That is what we've been hearing. My son is at the University of Cape Coast reading law. And I've been telling him a lot. I'll share that with you later on. It's good. Money is good. But, okay, we will come to that later. Before the passage of the Narcotics Control Commission Bill into law, those who smoked a joint of weed were given outrageous prison sentences with the conviction. So the judges had a certain conviction, underlining the imprisonment. So the conviction was that such persons should be reformed through the prison system. Ironically, when they go to prison, that is the hub for weed smoking. they smoke profusely. So this defeats the purpose of the reformation and rehabilitation of these people who were given outrageous sentences. So what do you expect? They come out more addicted and then hardened. Lack of adequate lawyers to represent accused persons in court makes mockery of our designation as a champion of human rights, especially when the Legal Aid Commission, I'm happy Sani is here, the Legal Aid Commission has only 35 lawyers. I stand to be corrected across the country. Many accused persons find themselves in prison because they could not talk in court, especially if it is their first time. Most of them shiver in court. Most of them don't even know the difference between, someone being guilty and then being innocent. We also know that some of the prosecutors at times mislead them. They tell them to plead guilty in court and that they will be freed. They are therefore quickly convicted. It is therefore not surprising that our prisons are full with such poor petty offenders and others who may not have been there if they had the services of lawyers. Whilst Crime Check Foundation continue the advocacy for the Legal Aid Commission to be resourced, I'd want to appeal to you to volunteer free legal services to our brothers and sisters who are hurriedly thrown into prison because they did not get your assistance. That is why I made a play earlier on that you should be visiting the prisons. You have to go in there, a cell, let's assume this is a cell. It could contain as many as 200 inmates. And if you look at, I'm sure you may have watched the documentary, we saw how they are arranged. A country that makes lots of noise on the international scene with regards to a human rights record. And if you look at the way people, some of whom may be innocent, are treated, then it makes mockery of that deceptive designation. So please make yourself available, visit the prisons. I'm sure you'll be allowed passage. In the UK, we have a chief inspector of prisons who periodically visits the prisons to learn at first hand some of the conditions in there. I don't know why African prisons are so reluctant to allow people in there, to allow journalists. People ask me, and I say, perhaps I was lucky they allowed me in there, but it is difficult. There is no way. So I usually ask, what is there that they are hiding? But I think you have a responsibility, you have a mandate. You can write officially to the prison service to undertake some visits, so that at least you can report accurately on the situation in the prison. If journalists are being denied access, you have the right to do so. So I want you to think about it. The pain and psychological trauma such inmates who may have been convicted wrongly go through roll back the clock of development because some of them come back more hardened out of pain to unleash terror on all of us. Because if the person feels that, they did nothing wrong, did not get the services of a lawyer, they have been imprisoned, what do you expect them? That is why the recidivist, rate continues to show. There are most of these ex-convicts who come out deliberately commit crime to go back to prison because we know the subculture. Society will not accept them, families will not accept them. But in the prisons, they have a society within where they can be happy. I was at the Kumasi Central Prisons 3 days ago to pay the fines for the release of some petty offenders as part of our petty offenders project. Crime Check Foundation has paid the fines and released over 2,000 prisoners within the last 3 to 4 years because of the absence of a non-custodial law. So we are complementing efforts by the Ghana Prison Service to reduce the congestion. Other than that, our prisons would have been even fuller than what the PR of the Ghana Prison Service, Corey Achem, said yesterday. So you also have a role as change agents to also continue the advocacy that some of us have started. Some of us are growing old. We may not be there all the time to do the advocacy, but you even have a bigger platform than some of us. We are only using our cameras and telling the story, but you can challenge authorities in court. You can take government to court. It appears there is that gaping loophole. So successive governments have gone to sleep, especially when it comes to reformation and rehabilitation of our prisons. No one cares. But let's also not forget that you and I could also fall victims. You could be there. I'm surprised that anytime the politicians go in and then come back, they try to do a donation. What do they need a donation for? We are talking about proper reformation and rehabilitation so that our prisons become purely correctional institutions. I'm a PhD student, and I'm looking at the social cultural factors affecting the rehabilitation of migrant prisoners. And it will interest you to note that these migrant prisoners, some of whom come from advanced countries, are really finding it difficult. Some of them even want to commit suicide because the conditions in our prisons are so terrible. Yet when we go out, we create a different picture about Ghana, as if democracy began with us. So please, take the mantle. I'm so proud of you as future lawyers. Don't confide yourself to the luxury of private practice. Of course, you could do private practice, but still make some time. Sani is a perfect example. He works with the Legal Aid Commission, but it's been moving up and down. People bring cases to them, and then, of course, what some of you, I don't want you to be misled by the populist agenda that if you go private, you get money, and so what? If you get money, and so what? What impact are you leaving on society? The poor, the voiceless, the vulnerable. Let your name be at the top there. The private lawyer or the public lawyer that did so much for society, that got so many people out of prison from pro bono. You can do that and still make money. You can do that and get international organizations to invite you. Some of us started like that. We put in every effort. If you're a journalist with the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, how much do you earn a salary? I went to GBC with an MPhil in English and then added some master's degrees. But if I tell you my salary, but because of the effort, because of the zeal, because of the passion, lots of international organizations, the USAID is working with Crime Check, we see Welcoming Society Initiative West Africa is working with us, many international organizations, because of the passion. So you may think that people are not looking at you. So forget about this notion of getting money through private practice. And then the funny thing is that when lawyers get so much money from private practice too, they spend most of their money on unnecessary things. I have many lawyers who do so. You see, unnecessary things, big shoes, big watches, and so on and so. What impact will you be making? And when my son went for an interview at the University of Cape Coast, wanting to read law, he said, I want to, he told the panel, I want to follow in the footsteps of my father. And they said, who is your father? He mentioned my name. So, oh, that man. I'm sure that may have influenced the panel because of what they perceive as the selfless work that some of us are doing. So that name, you should carry that name, not rather holding suitcases stacked with money. Then at the end of the day, no one benefits from it. It should be about service to humanity, in dignity, in love. Sani, when even he is ill, he would want to represent someone in court. The joy, it should be about the joy, of working for Mother Ghana, for your fellow human being. That should be that should be your preoccupation. I don't want to revisit what I've said, but there's one thing that I would want you to take home. Visit to the prisons. It will give you a totally different picture. It will make you revise your notes. If you want to, if you feel that you may not be able to access the prisons, you can contact me. You could even go on a visit with me. We could even go together for you to have a look inside, how people sleep at 4 p.m. Will you sleep at 4 p.m.? No. They sleep, they are locked up at 4 p.m. And then, assuming this is a cell, only one WC. So if someone is easing themselves, the scent is captured in there. There are no fans. You see the abuse that we are visiting in our fellow human beings, against some of whom may not have committed any crime. I met Consoro 4 years ago at the Kumasi Central Prison. When I met him, he was caught up in a police swoop. And then given 40 years because he couldn't explain himself, till we helped him out through an appeal. So whilst ending, I have only one appeal. Be selfless, not selfish. Be dedicated to improving the cause of humanity. That is more important. Others died for their countries and left an indelible mark that is still recognizable in history. That is what you should be thinking about, and not changing coats and ties every month. That is my advice to you. On this note, I would want to thank you very much, and may God help each and every one of you in your pursuits. Thank you.
Yes, prisons need reformation and not donations. He also told us that let's do persistent advocacy for non-custodial sentences, and said some prisoners come out more hardened than reformed. Thank you very much, sir.